Hey everyone, Livy here, back with another video. Welcome back to my channel, or hello if you're new. I am doing, sorry, I don't know why I paused like that. Maybe that's like sick brain, just being a little slower to the uptake. I am doing my August musings. This is talk about everything kind of that went on during the month of August. General life stuff in the beginning, then books I read during the month, and decks I used, and what was going on with all of that. So I'm going to start with the quick life things so I can move on to the things I think are more interesting. First off, I'm going to be very honest. August was kind of rough. Honestly, rough. I was full swing into work by August. But then the kids officially came back to work, and some of it was fine, but some of it was not so fine because it led to a lot of, well, for me, a lot of illness. I don't know why this happens to me every single time, but like every time the kids come back, I always get something that they have, whether it's colds, flus, whatever. Not COVID yet, luckily, but a lot of other bullshit that I don't like, and that's unfortunate because I even had to take like one day was a half day. I had to pause and think about that. One day was a half day. I had another day actually off because I had like, I don't know, it was like a weird cold flu thing. But it wasn't even as bad compared to now where like I know I was really actually sick and definitely feverish, throat, nose got all fucked up. It's a whole thing. Anyways, gross. August in that respect, not great. And just what I'm doing in my work, not as bad as years past, but still not great. So life was hard out here. I mean, I tried to cope by I'm still watching. I don't know if I mentioned this in my July. I think I mentioned it in July. I don't know if I did. My July musings. I've been watching mainly the show Suits. You know what made like Meghan Markle famous apparently before she was married to the royal family. Yeah. I've been watching Suits. I'm actually enjoying it more than I thought I would because I'm a very fantasy focused person. I like shows and things that are not about real life. So it's kind of funny that I actually like this show. But I've been like just slowly watching. I'm not going to tell you it's like the greatest thing to literature or not literature, to media or anything like that. But it's just been fun to watch because my brain's just been exhausted. Oh, and I also in the month of August finally watched the Barbie movie. I actually liked Barbie, I have to say, overall. Although I will say the only thing about that movie is that I felt like while it was entertaining and stuff, I feel like a lot of it was kind of like, how do I explain this? A lot of it was kind of like no shit Sherlock kind of things. Like if you knew anything about feminism, like nothing that Barbie was presenting was new information. So I feel like for people who are newer to the idea of how the world works at all, or toxic masculinity, or anything related to the status quo, if you know anything about that, right, Barbie is not going to be a surprise to you. I think like the movie is best served for people who are still new to understanding anything related to feminism and all that other stuff. I feel like you would get the most kick out of it for that reason. I thought it was a good movie, like it was entertaining, but again, nothing in it was quite new for me personally, and I guess that's just my opinion there. But otherwise, though, maybe that's what's good. Like maybe people needed another reminder, another wake up call. I don't know, but other than that, it was fine. Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna move on from that. That's way too long talking about one movie. I'm going to now get into books, because besides that, besides work and occasionally watching some things, I feel like I didn't do too much else in the month of August except trying to and failing kind of with my reading, and I'm going to explain that in a second, and like doing tarot related things. So let's start with books. Last month, as you all know, I started reading Dune. I finally finished Dune, thank God. Sorry, I had to laugh there. Like, thank everything in this universe that I finally finished Dune, because this took up a lot of the beginning of my month. I was trying to finish this book, and I was just getting infuriated and just being like, God, when is this over? This is way too long. Why? So, I'm not going to say everything, because again, there's thoughts I had that's in my July musings about Dune. So I'm going to end with my final thoughts on Dune. Final thoughts are, I don't understand why everyone thought Paul Atreides was the hottest shit there was in this book at all. I really don't understand. Like, I don't understand why people like him as a character. He just seemed like this all-knowing, weird person. I don't even know how many years, I can't remember how many years actually passed either, like, in this book. But even if he was like young-ish by the end of this book series, like, I don't know, about 18 or so, I would say, I don't understand why he was revered as much as he was. He wasn't that great of a character. So character-wise, didn't like him. Also, I don't know. I still have the same thoughts on, like, the whole white savior trope, very, very present in this. Also weirdly uncomfortable with how the society in this book that's supposed to be seen as lesser is, like, Middle Eastern coded. Don't like that at all. And also just was not a fan of, okay, how do I explain this? I felt like the character of Chani could have been developed a lot more interestingly than she was. I feel like she was barely present in this. And so it's just unfortunate. I don't know how the movie version of Dune is going to make her character better, but I hope it does, because, like, she felt like she was barely present in this. So basically, would I read Dune again? No. Would I want to continue with the other books that I know are in Dune? No. I might watch the second half, the second Dune movie whenever that comes out, to see how the movie handles everything. But I'm not liking how it was described in this. If I had to give this a rating, okay. Writing-wise, even though some of it got really repetitive and there was just parts in here that I don't think should have been in, it wasn't the worst book I ever read. So for that reason, I think this Dune will sit solidly in a 2 for me. Sorry to the fans who love Dune, but I could not stomach a lot of it. So yeah, moving on. Because I was slogging through Dune for the beginning of the month, I needed something to cleanse my palate. I just needed something fun and light and maybe quick, and I did get that. I read Legends and Lattes, so I can finally tell you that this was a very fun and entertaining read. I do think if you are a fan of coffee and that whole aesthetic, like coffee houses and all that sort, I think you will be a fan of this. And if you do like the idea of races, like different fantasy races and stuff like that, I do think you will like it for that. However, this is where I have to pause here. However, this book is advertised as low stakes, okay? Low stakes. So that means that you should not expect anything really crazy and intense to be happening with this. Okay, there was a couple of points where I was like, oh, okay, oh snap, I don't know what's going on. But it is pretty much what it says, which is low stakes. Unfortunately, that also means for this book, as low of detail as possible. So, what would I rate this because of that? I would say this is a solid 3. This is a 3 for me. And the reason why it's not higher is because even though the story was very cute and fluffy, this author has an issue with putting the very, 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 very bare minimum description of and plot of anything onto the page. A lot of it is just, they went to work, they did this, and here's this new work situation, they did this, which is fine, like, because there's, you know, there's cute things involving baking and like learning how to drink coffee and all that stuff and trying to teach the people of this fantasy world in the region they're in about coffee. So fine. But I really wish there had been, for me personally, a lot more world building involved, more details presented, not just the bare minimum details. Like I had no clue how this world really operated. And for me, as someone who's more a plot person than a character person, well, I'm plot first and then characters have to be a close second, but I need there to be an actually deep enough plot for me to keep going and loving it completely and all that. Yeah, because of all that, this fell down for me. So it was not like a complete 4. Maybe it's closer to 3.5 because I did enjoy reading this and I would recommend this if you're looking for a lighter read and something that's just like, again, interesting and fun and doesn't make you have to think too hard. This is going to be a good read for you. But other than that, for me, it just needed a little more in plot for it to be of a higher rating. So after I read this, though, this was a pretty quick read. I'm pretty sure I read this in less than a week's time, even despite everything. So yeah, was fun. But after this, I don't know why I had decided, because I read, Legends and Lattes, let me try to read a book on my TBR that's literally been on my TBR for years. And now I understand why, because holy shit, I don't want to go through this experience again. The last book I read in August, barely finished it, like some hours back, literally. Last book of August, because this took me forever to read. And I'm just, don't want to do it again. I read Snow Falling on Cedars. Now, as you can see here, this book has won an award at some point in time. And I'm going to say this now, just because a book wins an award does not mean it's actually good. It's just that some people, or maybe it was, okay, let me backtrack. This book came out, I'm pretty sure, in the 90s. Let me see if it actually even says in here, but I'm pretty sure it came out in the 90s. So for the 90s, this might have been the true pinnacle of its time. But I'm going to tell you now that in 2023, this does not hold up well. I was trying to see if it says it. Yep, copyright 1995. There you go. It was even the early 90s. So this tells you even more. My God. I didn't like this. Let me try to explain why. So for those who don't know anything about Snow Falling on Cedars, this is a book about a murder trial. Specifically, this is about a citizen of this island who is suspiciously, to all of them, dead. He's just dead. He was a fisherman. He was on his boat. They found him in his net. He wound up dead, and they think it's sus, basically. Except their first reaction is to blame this one of the citizens of the island, this Japanese American of it, because his family and the person who died and his family had this, not a feud, but they had this situation where the murder victim's dad had loaned their family money to have a small amount of acreage in the around World War II time, which led to conflict because, surprise, surprise, we had World War II happen, and then Americans hated Japanese citizens, and A lot of that is explored in this book, let me tell you, in a way I did not like. A lot of it was very, very, very low-key racist and gross, and I just was not a fan of this. No. Okay, I mean, I guess you can argue that, okay, because the book is supposed to take place, like by the time that this story's happening and the whole murder case is happening, it's the 1950s. So, yes, a lot of Americans, you can argue, were very racist, especially towards Japanese citizens at this time, or like Japanese American citizens specifically in this case. But this author is writing in 1995. So, did you have to have as many characters as you did be as racist as they were? I don't know if you really needed that. You know what I mean? I will say, I'm not going to spoil everything, but justice was served and the person who was accused... Anyways, I'm going to stop it there. But basically, luckily it ended okay. But I did not like a lot of what was happening in between. Again, mainly it was like how racist a lot of the characters were. I was just not a fan of that personally. And also, by the way, the biggest one I want to talk about is there is I don't want to give all the spoilers, but there is like an affair kind of in this. Well, not really an affair, but like there was a secret relationship between this Japanese American woman, child, etc. Because it goes through a lot of periods of time. And this one man in the town who's a journalist covering this whole case. And they had like a love affair kind of when they were kids, but there was a lot of gross things revolving that and how the white man in that book was acting towards her. I'm not going to get into full details, but basically it icked me out and I just thought he was a terrible character. I'm sorry, he just was. Like, did not care for it. So yeah, I'm really not a fan of this one. And because of that, okay, the only thing I did like is that I did think that by the end of this book, I understood the town and the people within it in this island community well. I thought that part was done. Like, the setting was done pretty well, but everything else in here was kind of garbage. And I also didn't like that the author just went on and on and on and on and on about tangents about people in this town. And I'm like, what? How are they relevant to our plot? Can we get back to the plot, please, sir? Sir, I don't want to sit through all this anymore. I don't. Because of all those things, this is also a 2-star read for me. And unfortunately, yeah, this is the last book I read in August. Jesus, I need to read something better in September. I just want fun times from here on out because I'm not about this. Okay. Done ranting. Sorry for all that ranting, by the way. If you really wanted to skip past that, I hope you fucking did because that was too much. Anyways, let's talk about the decks that I actually used during the month of August. And I actually have a pretty good pile here. I'm going to start with the deck that, out of all of mine in my collection, I do not think worked like much at all, to be honest. And that is this one. This is the Greenwich Oracle. Interestingly enough, you guys probably remember, I did get this deck not too long ago. I want to say it was maybe in... Oh, shoot. There's evidence of this. There's receipts somewhere on my channel. But I want to say it was back in either May or June or sometime around thereof. Or maybe even earlier. I don't remember. Anyways, not important. That's not important to this relevance. Greenwich Oracle. Reasons why it did not work for me. Once again, has to go back to the guidebook. I am going to show some of the cards, though, so you know. Okay. The reason why I found myself not able to connect with this deck, even though this has food on it, kitchen witchery stuff that I love, is because When I was trying to dig deeper to get the meanings of these plants and vegetables and fruits and such, I felt like the keyword on the card didn't make much sense in connection to what it was saying in the guidebook. And I'm going to show an example of that in just a second. But yeah, there was a disconnect in keywords to what the guidebook was claiming was the actual magical correspondences to these things that were presented, okay? The other thing I think about this deck and why I was having a hard time connecting with it is that even though the vegetables and fruits and plants and such that are illustrated are colored, they're nice, the background around it, or like the things around it, as you can see, they don't have a lot of difference to them. There's some images here that kind of relate to the keyword more so than the actual, again, the actual like fruit, plant, etc. presented. And because of that, because it's like kind of almost the same looking, I found myself getting very bored. I do not like decks where the background looks like it stays pretty much the same. There's no like change. There's no like... Unless it's like complete white space or complete black space or whatever with a purpose, generally, I do not like when they all the cards look the same like this. Sorry for people who do. I don't, so that's why I don't think this was going to land 100% for me. But I wanted to try anyways because, again, this is kitchen related, ingredients related. August was a big month for me in Tarot and Oracle. I should just get that out of the way. Where I wanted to learn more about plant energy and earth powers and all that such, right? I wanted to learn more about it. So that's why a lot of the decks you're going to see are revolving plants and that kind of thing. But let's talk about this guidebook, okay? What I'm talking about here is, for instance, if I look at sorrel, right? Sorrel's keyword is affection, okay? Affection. Let's look at the magical correspondences, uses, agreement, dexterity, love, family, inner healing. Cool. Okay, so you can make some stretch maybe to affection, but does that keyword completely encompass this? No. Like time, being courage. Oh, the biggest one that got me. Let me see if I can find it. Ah, here we go. Tomato. This one confused me the most. Tomato has love. But its other magical correspondences besides love include protection, prosperity, protection from evil, and an aphrodisiac. Then how does this connect? I don't know. I don't know. Not all of it hit the same way. I feel like the keywords in it were too broad compared. Oh, see, and this one doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, you have banishes negativity for onion, right? Protection. But then you have endurance, lust, and spiritual health. How does that have to do with protection? Like, this is what I'm talking about. There's just a weird disconnect for me. So for this deck, I have to say I maybe used this like twice trying to do like a daily oracle read. And then I was very confused and went fuck the shit and moved on. I did use a different oracle. I will get into that in a little bit. But for now, I just wanted to mention this one. This one will probably be going into my purgatory bin though. I don't think I will be keeping this. Okay, let's go on to a deck. Deck I used. One of the decks I used in August happened to be the Green Glyphs or Tarot. I did use this. I used this mainly in the beginning of the month because it felt very much like post-July going into August energy. These are the edges. They do like a cool holographic thing. They are bridge size. So if you are like me who have smaller hands, this deck will actually fit in your hand. Very good. And it shuffles pretty well. I'm just not. I'm still like sicky, so kind of hard for me to shuffle. Anyways, I only use this for really one reading. And then what was interesting was that despite how like interesting and different this deck is, I found myself not as drawn to it as I thought I would be. Or maybe it was just a time of year. I was in like a weird place emotionally. So beyond that reading, I didn't think like, it was a week ahead spread I did. Beyond that reading though, I didn't think, wow, I want to use that deck for another side thing, you know. Did not think that at all. I think this deck will have another time for me to go over it again and to like really bond with it and such. But for now, I used it for one reading and that's kind of where it sits. I don't know. Some decks are like that though. Some decks, it's like you get them and you don't always want to work with them all the time, or you don't realize until later that you do actually like them a lot. You know, I have a lot of decks like that. They're kind of like slow burn loving there. So we'll see. Maybe that's what the green glyphs will be for me. But another deck that I used in the month of August was the Herbcrafter's Tarot. Yes, I finally decided to use this one. I, once again, only use this for one reading though, but I actually enjoyed the reading I had with it. I think it did well. This deck is beautiful. It is. I do think, I'm being honest here, again, I have smaller hands. Many of you probably have this deck. So watch how this is for me. If I try to grip this like this, as you can see, I'm like struggling here. This finger and this can get around it kind of, but the rest and my pinky can't even, right? So in that case, this is a little bit wider and bigger of a deck than I like to use, to be honest. It's like the limits of my holding capabilities here. See, and then I'm struggling and it's like falling over all over the place. Nonetheless, the images on the cards are still wonderful. I learned a little bit about plants through this. Again, I only did it 1 week ahead spread with this, but I did enjoy that time. I feel like, well, actually, I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to bring this back out. I feel like I do need to do something with this to really understand the energy of this deck. There's like a part of me that's like very hesitant still with it, and I don't know why. But the artwork is beautiful. So I do want to keep using it. I just got to figure out like, I just got to figure out a time and place. I still love this card, by the way, the 3 of water. Oh, it's so beautiful. Especially like that cute little mouse. That looks, I swear to God, that looks like a Beanie Baby I had at one point in time. It could very well have been the model for that. But yeah. So good. It was good. I just need to think of like how to incorporate this deck more, because I ended up using the other 3 decks I'm going to mention a lot more than this one. So that is that of the Herbcrafter's Tarot, but I did enjoy it. I just need to, I don't know, I just need to think of a time to actually sit with it more, I think. Just like the green glyphs. But okay, let's go on to the next deck. This deck I used twice and actually loved it both times, surprisingly. Well, I don't know, maybe not surprisingly, but anyways, this is the Botanica Tarot. It comes in this kind of box, published by Beehive Books. See, it's not one of those that goes all the way flat. It does do like this kind of stoppage. And this deck is also an interesting shape. It's not tarot. It's not standard tarot. I would say this deck is more oracle sized, but even then it's like, oh, sorry. if you can hear the like sirens and stuff going on. I live near fire and police stations, so there's always some kind of noise. Oh, and the airplane zone, so that's great. Anyways, has gilding. Just kind of like, is this called foiling? I don't remember. But it's like a lot of gold in this. So in that case, this is not for everybody. But this deck is stunning. Not the best cardstock in the world either, I'm not going to lie. This is like bordering on just as bad as the Literary Tarot. Maybe slightly less horrible because it doesn't have as much gold. The gold's only on the back. I don't know. Anyways, though, not important. Images are important. The images are stunning for this deck. I found myself really, really, really enjoying this one. There's something about how beautiful the colors are in the Botanica Tarot, combined with what the guidebook says. Like, even in, by the way, I could take out the guidebook and show you, but there's literally the smallest of passages. But with those smallest of passages, it does still tell you what the flowers associated with them are. It shows you the images. So this can be kind of confusing, by the way, at first, like to figure out, except this one. The arcana, the major arcana is like the harder one, since it doesn't actually give you the names directly. But even with that brief information, it does tell you what the flower is, gives you divinatory meanings, explains a bit about like the imagery and why the flower is associated with what it was. And for some reason, with the cards I was getting, it really hit for me. I don't know. I don't know. I was just like, wow, that's really profound. And I found myself also realizing that I always would say, like, if you stuck me out in the middle of the wilderness and I had to try to survive on my own on plants and other things, I would fucking fail. Which is still kind of true. But I found that I recognized more of these flowers and such than I thought I did. And so that also made it kind of enjoyable because I could see where they were going with some of the connections. And it was really nice. Now this card, as you can see, there's something fucked up with this though. Again, not the greatest card stock. It just looks kind of like blurred and weird. I don't know what's going on, but not the greatest card stock, but the artwork is fantastic. Like, I'm living the colors. Like, look at this passion flower. Stunning, okay? Beautiful. And so for me, it worked. It worked really, really well. And I did end up using it for 2 week ahead readings because I just kept thinking like, oh man, I need to take that out again. I need to have it again. And by the way, it went really well with the next deck I'm going to show, but I just realized it's farther away from me, so give me a moment to pause and go get that one. Okay, I'm back. Maybe only a second for you guys. The other deck that this goes, by the way, beautifully with, and this is the Oracle I ended up really using, really using in the month of August, was Dirt Gems. Holy shit. I cannot even begin to explain how amazing this deck is. I am going to show you, though, with, I'm going to pair these so you guys can see. Sorry as I move things around. These two work beautifully together, but not just that. Dirt Gems, this one, by the way, which is actually tarot size and has the best, I don't know, there's something about this cardstock that's really good. It's like really thin and bendy, but it also feels like smooth, but not like incredibly high gloss when you're looking at it. It's like, it's kind of matte at the same time. It's really strange, but I love this cardstock. But this deck, these two decks together, which by the way, they also look very similar, were so good. So good together. And more than that, what I have to say about Dirt Gems is that this deck, this one right here, is so fucking powerful. A lot of it, and learning about plants and such from this deck specifically. I mean, this one I also did, but this one especially, is that you really, I don't know, the creators did such a good job of really explaining what each card meaning for this oracle was. Because if you don't know anything about plants, like I don't, again, I learned more because of this deck and this one, but I didn't know as much before, right? Is that I didn't learn much. I didn't learn much about history or anything, but the guidebook for the dirt gems is an actually big guidebook, and it is fantastic. It gives you long descriptions, like literally the book is about this is big, and each card has a whole long description. And it's just, I don't know, it's just fantastic. Like, look at the colors. Look at how beautiful these work together. And a lot of this deck for dirt gems, by the way, is about healing. It's about trying to find your place in the world when the whole world is like the worst. It's a lot of kindness and gentle and warmth, and about bringing like the best energy in. Like, I don't know how else to tell you how special dirt gems is. Like, I had seen this deck around. Okay, I had even seen that, I want to just specifically pick this up for a while. I had specifically seen even, oh shoot, what's her name? Johniki, there we go. Johniki over at Catamancy Tarot. She's kind of the one who kind of convinced me to pull the trigger on this, because I was watching her video when she was talking about it, and she showed off the guidebook and everything, and I just knew this deck and me had to be together. It is so good. So soul healing. Like, if you're someone who wants to do a lot of like healing work, I think this is going to be the oracle for you. Now, what I will say, because you guys can see, this is a type of oracle that has the titles on the cards. So that does mean that if you are somebody who likes keywords on your cards, this is not going to be your best friend, maybe. But at the same time, once you look at the guidebook entry and then you look at the image again, I find personally that my intuition was a lot more activated, and I was able to understand and decipher the images a lot better. And it makes sense to me. Like, for instance, now I don't even need the guidebook to tell you that the seaweed is a lot about finding, this card particularly, is about going to the origins of your being, specifically the primordial energy that can come from the sea, right? Of knowing your place in it and knowing who you are. It's something about it that just gives like shivers up my spine. It's so fantastic. This deck, I will say, this is the indie version. I heard a rumor, but I don't know when it'll be such, but I heard a rumor that this deck is going to be mass market. So if you do not want to pay, I guess, indie prices, you can wait. But I would just say that I personally am glad I got this indie version because of that amazing guidebook, and because of the fact that this cardstock is just delicious. And I don't know if a lot of current publishing companies, bigger name ones, I mean mass market publishing, will keep this beautiful cardstock. So there's that. If you're a cardstock snob, you might want this version, but yeah. This deck, though, truly fantastic. I even did, get this, guys, I even did an oracle study of this. I basically was taking pictures of every single oracle reading I was doing with this deck. Mostly they were 3-card readings, or pretty much all of them were 3-card readings. And I actually recorded that in my tarot journal. I don't normally do that, but I felt like I had to dig deeper and dissect a lot of these meanings that were presented in the cards, and I did so, and that was probably my favorite thing about August, honestly, was this deck and just being able to do that study for myself. really enriching, and I am just so glad that I have this one. And by the way, yeah, mine's all fucked up. It arrived like that, unfortunately, so can't really do anything about it, but I don't care. So good. So good. But finally, after all that praise for the other thing, finally, I must talk about the last deck that I used during the month of August. And that deck, my friends, happened to be the one, the only Tyldwick Tarot. Oh, this deck is still so glorious, God. I don't... Sorry, I'm getting like so dramatic as this video goes on, but I cannot. This is the Tyldwick Tarot. This is the 10th anniversary edition. I don't know if this is... Ooh, that's my only thing. I don't know if this is still taking orders. If it is, and you've been eyeing it, go ahead and grab it. This deck is so good. My one complaint about this deck, though, is even though it gives you a guidebook, look at how microscopically tiny. Like, this is... If I go far away like this, you cannot tell what this says. Okay, I'm sorry. You literally have to go up like this, like a magnifying glass, and there, guys, now you can read it. It's like that even in person. Like, it's even worse. That's the only thing about this that I'm not so much of a fan of. But other than that, this deck... Again, more gold gilding. I don't know what is up with me having a lot of decks with gold gilding lately. But this deck is also lovely. This cardstock, this art like papery, this, I don't know, something about this is so good. And you guys know, I use this deck also not only for week ahead reading that I did, one for sure, but I also use this deck for my soul reading. So here are the soul reading cards that popped up. It's still at the bottom of the deck. This deck, I will start by saying I do not think this deck is for everyone. And the reason why I do is that you have to be a very specific kind of tarot reader to want this deck. Specifically, you need to be a tarot person who prefers, let me start by that, saying a tarot reader who prefers to read the cards more intuitively. And you have to be somebody who does not like people being in your decks. Because if you are searching for faces and poses and whatever that people usually are in tarot cards, you're not going to find that here. I'm sorry, but you won't. This deck is more abstract in that way. It's about beautiful backgrounds and finding the meanings and energies of the cards based on these beautiful, beautiful background images. Like, you need to know from looking at this what Page of Swords energy is, or Fortitude in this case, like strength, renamed Fortitude, is to really understand this deck, I feel like. And if you're not as much of a fan of that, I don't know if you'll get the same energy from it. I really don't. I do wonder, someone's probably going to say yes it is, but I don't know. The guidebook does not say at all if it's RWS inspired, Thoth inspired, any of that sort of thing. But for some reason for me, even though strength is renamed Fortitude, I do think this deck is more RWS than Thoth. The only one that makes me question it is the coins in this. But other than that, I'm able to gain RWS meanings from them, so I don't know. I really don't. But yeah. But despite all that, I love this deck. And I have a feeling I'm going to end up reusing this deck by the end of this year. I was very tempted to think about this as a deck for September, because it still has that autumnal feel. But I think this will probably be more of a November, December energy when it comes back into play. So you guys will probably see this deck on my channel again before the year is out. Just saying. But yeah, that was the Tyldwick Tarot. 10th anniversary edition with these glorious backs and edges and amazing cardstock. And that was all. That's all for August. I feel like that went on way too long. But thank you for watching if you did completely for that time. I hope you were at least entertained, as I'm still like slightly sicky voice and trying to move on from the bad energy of August and get into brighter things in September. Oh, should I mention that now then? I will say, oh shoot, I don't know if I'd be able to find it in here so quickly. I will say, the funny thing about August was that, I thought I was about to wrap up this video. I'm so sorry, guys. I will say that August was also the month where my card of the month, by the way, which if I can find it, I will put it here, or maybe I'll just say it now as I look for it. My card of the month for August was also the Six of Pentacles, if you can believe it. No, staves. I saw the staves there and I was like, is that my card? No, it's not. Anyways, my card of the month was a Six of Pentacles. Can you believe that was my card? Because it's like, oh, give a lot of yourself. Give a lot of yourself. Be generous. Be this. Be that. Let me tell you, that part fucking sucked. I did do that too, by the way. I mainly was trying to be generous and kind and all that jazz for my work. Kind of have to when you work around children, you know, you have to be kind and generous. Even when, by the way, they're not always the best people. They're not always doing things. Oh, here we go. They're not always doing things that you necessarily approve of. My goodness. And yet, I somehow persevered, got through it. I did. I don't know how I feel about August being the month where I was supposed to be the most generous. I was, but I feel like it took something out of me. And so now, going into September, maybe I do have to put my walls back up. I'll think about what that means. I wanted to end on that note instead. But again, once again, sorry for that last tangent. If you were watching that long, thank you for watching. I do really care about so many of you, all of you. Unless you wish me ill will, I'm sorry, then maybe I don't. But I do care about if you're watching or not. So thank you again. And I will see you all again next time. Bye.